Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello everybody home and welcome to Houselights. We are opening our first entry into the house of Alfonso Cuarón. And I am very excited because this is one of my favorite directors of all time. He has done so many great works. And, I don't love everything that he's done. So don't think that this is just going to be a love fest from beginning to end. But his style, his panache, if you will, just really, grabbed me at a very young age. So I'm very excited to talk about it tonight. And we were going to start with Great Expectations, but we called an audible at the last moment, and we realized that we're like, why are we starting with Great Expectations? So we decided to start with his first English language film with A Little Princess. And so that is what we're doing tonight. And so we're going to continue to do that. We're going to focus on his English language films. And some of you might be thinking to yourself, Tristan, what's the deal? Why are we being so problematic here and only doing his English language films? Well, I'll tell you why, hypothetical listener. I refuse to watch YouTube Mama Tambien again, for obvious reasons for those of you who have seen it. And if I watch Roma one more time, I will probably cry myself to death. So I get too emotional during Roma. So English language films, that's what we're going to do in this house of Cuarón. So I am your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me, as always, is Darren Moser and John Mills. And Darren, I want to ask you a very pointed question, because here we are, three men talking about A Little Princess. Mm-hmm. When was the first time that you saw this movie? And if this was your first time, what did you know about the movie?
I mean, you say three men watching this movie, yet we're all three men with daughters. So I'd say we're especially suited. This was probably one of those, I know it's not a Disney picture, but it probably had a giant VHS. This was definitely, I think it actually did really well on VHS. I think it made like $35 million. It definitely captivated that secondary market.
Yeah, because it did not do well in the theaters whatsoever.
It did not.
It bombed on the release, but it got so much critical acclaim. It got awards, and they're like, let's re-release it. And then the re-release bombed. And then they're like, you know what? Even if you have a great movie with a great script and a great, a great message and story and everything like that, doesn't mean people are going to go see it. I'm quoting here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't, in 1995, this was not exactly going to be in my wheelhouse. This was not something I was looking to watch. And I was aware of it because of all of the praise. I remember seeing posters for it. I remember seeing maybe an ad or something floating by where somebody, they were like, A Little Princess, everybody loves it sort of thing. But, there was 0% chance I was going to spend the money to go see it, because that's right when I was heaviest into watching, big budget action movies on screen and stuff like that, and going out with my buddies and everything. And the movies we were going to go see were things produced by like Dean Devlin and that sort of stuff. And so Little Princess didn't it was in my awareness, but this was the first time I watched it. And it's not something that I ever sat and said, oh, I'm not going to watch this. It was just always something that was like, maybe someday I get the opportunity.
I was that way. when this came out, I was 9. And so when it came out on video, I was probably 10. And my dad was the one and said, hey, you should watch this. And I go, nah, it's called A Little Princess. Nah, and I'm not going to do that. I'm too manly at 10 years of age to watch this little girly Little Princess film. And he was telling me, he's like, no, you do not understand. This is a great story. It's been remade tons of times. He's like, it's shot well. The art direction is well. He's like, you're going to enjoy this. And I'm like, no, go screw yourself. And then he smacked me. But no, it was something that I refused to watch for a very long time. And it was this weird machismo. It just, yeah.
No, see, I mean, for me, it wasn't like a machismo thing. It was just like, what is the movie about? It's about a little girl and her imagination, and she's in a certain school, and it's rated G. And I had the same reaction that so many other people do when they see rated G. Oh, it's a kid's movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm older than the both of you. And so a rated G movie in 1995, I'm not going to go see a Don Bluth movie either or anything like that. I might catch it on video. But
you catch Don Bluth in video.
No, but like something comes out, it's like, yeah, Disney had its heyday in the early 90s and everything, in the mid 90s and everything, but it's like they marketed the hell out of that, but also managed to twist the market in such a way that when you saw that G rating, it was still death. It was still going to drive people away from it because they're like, yeah, I'll catch it on PBS eventually or something. I don't know. G is just like, it's not something that rolls out the red carpet to everybody.
Total tangent. But I remember, I don't know if this is a real memory or if this is made up, but I thought I remember reading something about Shakespeare in Love, where when you watch it, all of a sudden, just there's some really, like really intense graphic sex scenes and nudity. And as you're watching it and the rest of it, it's completely betrays the tone. Like, what's going on here? And I could have sworn that I read somewhere that they intentionally added that stuff as reshoots to make it a rated R film to appeal to adult audience. But that doesn't make sense to me because PG-13 always gets more money. I don't know, but this could be another podcast altogether talking about the rating system, and how that appeals to audience. But it just made me think of the reverse, or I should say the opposite of what you were talking about.
I mean, even though the money would follow PG-13, maybe they were smarter and they were going for the audience they knew would like the film most. Like, in a way of like, yeah, you're going to make less money, but you're going to have more people talking good about it because they're all adults.
I mean, setting Shakespeare in Love aside, though, right?
Yes,
like,
please set it aside. I'm sorry. It was supposed to just be a little
I know, but like another hurdle is, based on the novel, A Little Princess. I never heard of that thing. So written in 1905. I mean, if it was like, oh, this is based on a story by Dr. Seuss, then even G-rated people my age would have been like, oh yeah, we got to go see it. It's a new Dr. Seuss movie,
Mary friggin' Pickford did an adaptation of this. That's how old this story is.
Yeah, that's something where it's like you hear your grandparents talk about how when they were young and everything was 2 bits, they went down and they saw it. They saw it 6 times in the theater because they didn't kick you out at the end of showings and stuff like that. So it's
down to the Nickelodeon.
Exactly. The cinematograph.
So wait, then I'm assuming the story changed a bit because this is set in 1914, which, let me check the math, is after 1905. So obviously, unless they were predicting the Great War.
There's a Japanese adaptation too. I'm trying to find a copy of it, but there's a Japanese adaptation where it's the same story, where except it's a little bit skewed, a little older, where she's like, oh, I grew up in India. I spent time in India, but then I had to go back to Japan, but at a high school boarding school.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's adaptation. There's been TV movie. There've been a few TV movies. There's been multiple cinematic adaptations. I think the first one was Mary Pickford in the 20s. I think 1926. And there's been adaptations since. But I do think that this was the first one where Becky was a black woman, or a black girl, I should say. Okay. And I always thought that was a really nice change. I really like that dynamic of the video. Now, John, was this the first time you've seen this?
Yeah. I was saying this is the the one where
you said that like you hadn't seen it, like it wasn't in your wheelhouse and everything like that, but like you didn't see it later in life. Like this was for this podcast, this was the first you've seen it.
Oh yeah. This was finally there was an excuse to see it and be like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about this thing so many years ago, sort of stuff.
Now, Darren, I didn't get an answer out of you.
Yeah, we probably either on VHS, but actually thinking about it, we probably saw this in theaters. I have a younger sister, so we probably all went and saw this in the, like, I could see my parents doing that for sure. So I couldn't remember the plot. Like, it's been decades since watching this, but I knew it was one of those, it's like that mid-90s golden light look that makes you sad. Like, that's the vibe I remember, and boy, did it pay off. But
oh my God. Speaking of look, okay, so this movie got nominated, I cannot remember if it won, for Best Cinematography and Best Production Design.
It was nominated for cinematography and art direction. And it did not win either for the Academy Awards.
But this one, this was an interesting looking film. Alfonso Cuarón, first English language cinematic adventure. And it was good. Like, he threw the color green at you hard. I don't know if you noticed this. It took a keen eye and a sharp wit to really catch the subtle cues of green in this film. But it was I'm of course being sarcastic. But what did you think about before we get into the story, the acting, and everything like that? Because it was nominated for cinematography and art direction. What did you guys think of that? Like, John, what did you think about the cinematography of this movie?
I thought there were moments that I thought really worked well in terms of evoking a sort of, it's not necessarily the right word for it, but it's sort of like a storybook or like a children's book sort of approach to color. I think specifically of when the leaves change. And there was always a very conscious sense. You mentioned the color green, but then there's also that golden yellow of the leaves changing and the yellow of the flower. And those things are always set against these very drab gray backgrounds. But even the grays are rich in the background, and it all serves the purpose of making that color come forward more. So it was very obviously a very color rich. Where I would say I could see somebody offering some sort of criticism is I think that it worked to a disadvantage in some of the camera movement shots where the artifice is a little too visible. So like I could look at this and say, this is really artfully done and really purposely put together. And I really like what's going on, but so, I can see a little ripple in the curtain when the magician does his trick sort of thing. And I'm like, if we just pulled that a little bit over this way, or maybe decided there was one shot in particular where it was moving around a car and it was closer to the end. And it's a nice enough shot, but it has this wobble to it where you can tell it's not necessarily what they weren't necessarily intending a wobble, because there's no like documentarian sort of vibe to it. But you can tell it's the wobble of like, well, okay, we stepped up on the curb, but we couldn't, this is
something.
This is the best. This is the best of the bunch that we got. So let's just go with this one. And I'm not sitting there being like, oh, it's garbage, but it's like, there were some little rough moments.
Alfonso, how dare you?
I mean, there were just some little rough moments where like I thought it was really, really well put together visually, but not, I could understand why it would be nominated for an award, but not win the award sort of thing, if that makes sense.
This was photographed by Emmanuel Lubezki, which
legend.
Yeah. Good Lord.
Absolute legend.
This guy photographed Birdman. That alone. He did Children of Men, Gravity, The Revenant, and Birdman. If he never did another motion picture, that's all he would need on his resume.
The thing that fills me with great joy, though, is that he also worked with Tim Burton on Sleepy Hollow. And that's a film where whatever other problems there might be, boy, did his visual sensibilities really work there. Like, I can easily look at Sleepy Hollow and say, oh, the same guy shot that. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I can see that in this movie. I can see that guy at work here. And I enjoy that. I like that.
He also did Meet Joe Black, which I would love to do a Martin Brest wing.
I've never seen it. And a breast wing. But I love the fact that you want to do a breast wing, because it's like, now I want chicken, right? I want chicken now. And can we find somebody with the last name Leg? And we got like a whole thing going there.
Technically, it would be House of Breast, which, evokes a whole different sorts of imagery there.
We will get a whole new audience.
This guy also did The Cat in the Hat, which was shot really well, if you've seen it.
It was shot well.
He did some Terrence Malick films as well, with The New World and To the Wonder and Tree of Life.
Tree of Life. Come on, Tree of Life.
Tree of Life.
I mean,
so this guy knows what he's doing. So to see A Little Princess, and Patrick Doyle did the music, which he also did for Great Expectations, which was which we'll talk about next week. But one thing, like I think you hit it on the head, where there was a lot of great stuff, but you could tell that the '90s were showing, with some of their some of the things that were going on, with some of the mistakes that was going on. Now, Steven Weisberg edited this movie. And he, of other Cuarón's works, he edited Great Expectations. He also edited Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So he brought his own people when he got into the to the Harry Potter franchise and everything like that. But even though he's done some good stuff, and he's also done some not good stuff, and he's no longer with us, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I just think this was a poorly edited film. I know we're getting through the technical stuff, but there were so many things that I didn't enjoy, and I don't know if it was it could have been Cuarón's influence, and I don't know if it was Weisberg's doing or not, but there were certain scenes where I feel like, yes, understand that you're showing the passage of time by fading to black, but I feel like we did it a little too much. And there was also dissolves mid-scene when there didn't need to be dissolves mid-scene. There were so many dissolves, and I understand that sometimes, like when you're doing something really dreamy or fantastical, you can do a dissolve, or when you're showing the passage of time,
But
you can
the
do a
dissolve wasn't invented until 1996, so I don't know the cut. The cut wasn't invented, so I don't know what you're talking about, Tristan. That's just what we had, and it's good enough.
I think that I agree with you. I made that joke where it's like I said, "Oh, I'll catch it on PBS sometime." This has this very much has the feel of a BBC thing I would have happened across while watching TV with my dad. And that is the only way I can describe the editing. And it's completely in agreement with what you just said, where I'm watching it and my sense of the editing is this is somebody who isn't up to speed on how the American market expects its cinema delivered to it, especially at this time. I'm not obviously I'm not putting anything down or saying anything bad. I'm just saying, like, just like watching a BBC thing, it's like, oh, you can look at a BBC thing and you're like, the film stock's different, the way they light it's different, and the way they cut it together is totally not the way I'm used to seeing things, and it just doesn't click the same way.
Absolutely. That's so astute. Yeah, exactly. It is. I mean, this is a guy who was born in Mexico City and, was born in the 60s. And I mean, that's so astute. Like if you watch YouTube Mama Tambien and some of his earlier works,
talking about that one.
Shut up. Or even if you've seen some of his shorts, like Vengeance is Mine or Maracata, it's just which is a TV series. But like if you see some of the stuff, not sentimentality, but the mentality is different. The style is different. It's just from culture to culture. That's one of the things that makes film so unique and beautiful and rich, is that everything is so different, and the mentality is different. And with this being his first English language film, that's interesting that we might have been seeing that transition from a kind of a Mexican style filmmaking to an English language, like British or American kind of filmmaking, like, which I feel is kind of lingers in Great Expectations, which we'll talk about next week, but is nowhere near as present as it is in A Little Princess.
It's interesting because I think that speaks to something that people don't always take into account as well, which is, number one, critics responding so well, better maybe than the average audience at the time, would have probably that perspective of seeing more international films. So they don't notice that difference. Like there's a sort of certain blindness to it. Their brain just sort of automatically kicks into speaking that visual language sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that might be why the critics have that great encounter with it. And then others like myself, come at it. I wonder if the average audience, the person paying the ticket to go into the theater, they're not equipped in that way. And so they don't understand that even though Cuarón and the people he's working with have a filmography up to this point, they're not completely at square one, but they're basically sent back earlier in their career trajectory in terms of this market, right? Like, this is almost like a first film in that sense. It's a really accomplished first film. It's something where I think looking at it and saying, oh, look at the great history that this guy has bringing to it. And you're like, oh, well, why didn't that work too well for me? Whereas your mindset when you go into this, if it's like, this is his first film, you're like, oh, I can't wait to see the next thing he does. Do you get what I'm going at with that?
I totally get what you're going at. Yes, absolutely. And I think, once we get to Great Expectations next week, we'll be able to have a basis of comparison to really see where he's grown or changed or altered in his style. Now, Darren, I want to switch gears a little bit with you here. Now, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, we are all girl dads. And this is a movie very much about a dad and a daughter relationship. Now, what do you think about how can you tell us how old your daughter is and if you would show this film to her?
So my daughter's 11, and this movie would emotionally destroy her. She is definitely in the "I love you, mommy, I love you, daddy," and like misses us when she's away for the day. I don't think she could handle the emotional roller coaster that this little girl goes through. So I'm thinking I'm going to wait for the teenage angst years when she's not as loving. No. But yeah, I think she would enjoy this movie, but there would be repercussions. So we're not going to do that just yet. With this, it's interesting because I was peeking into the history of the story, and it goes back. It was a short story in like 1888. Like it wasn't a full on novel till 1905, like you said, but it made me think of play vibes because it's pretty much in one location throughout. It started as a play. It actually was a short story and then a play first.
I didn't know that.
I could totally see that because the boarding house is pretty much where we spend 90% of our time. So yeah, the only other thing I'll say, based off of the look that you guys were describing, is for a movie set prior to electricity, or I know it has electricity, but a movie set with many candles. I love how much light we get in 1995. I love that I can still see everything, as opposed to nowadays, if it was lit like that, it would be so dark. It would be like, we don't need lights. It's a natural light, the candle. It's like, no.
Now, see, the irony of that is that we were talking about how this director of photography goes on to do The Revenant. And you want to talk about a movie that's really committed to the natural light thing.
True.
Boy, howdy, that movie's really all in on that move. So, this is still in the, okay, we have a light set, and this is the sensibility hasn't changed, not one whit. This is still in the, T2 comes out 4 years before this. This is still in the, boy, that moon's sure bright in Los Angeles. Okay. Right? Like, wow, I can see everything in the darkened hills around Miles Dyson's house. Like, yeah, I think, though, that if you're going to have this G-rated movie that's supposed to be accessible to children, they definitely wouldn't put up with that. So I don't think it was a consideration, but it definitely works to its advantage.
Going on without it being pitch black and dark.
Well, you also have a terrific performance from the lead actress, and I want to
talk about that.
Yeah.
I want to jump in on that. Liesl Matthews played Sarah Crew, and she was born and raised in Chicago, and she's a member of the Pritzker family. And J.B. Pritzker is Illinois' governor, which is where I'm located. And the reason why we haven't really seen her much anymore is because when she got a little bit older, when she got to 19, she sued her family and got $500 million.
Well, good for her.
Wow.
Way to go. Oh. Listen, if my parents had that kind of money, as much as I loved them, I probably would have done the same thing. I'm like, no, you can spare it.
Well, it went beyond her parents, because the Pritzker family came from the Hyatt hotel chain. Like they own, they're like 11 of them are billionaires on the Forbes list. It's insane.
Oh yeah, it said the initial lawsuit was $6 billion. So she got away with pocket. Yeah, you aim very high.
You aim high. But she's doing a lot of good with the money. But Liesl Matthews, that's her stage name. I want to talk about her performance, and I'm just gonna come out right with it. I didn't like it.
Really?
It could be my own issue. Like when I said this, because I watched this with my wife last night, because she had seen this movie a bunch of times. She likes this movie. She hadn't seen it in years. And I'd seen it maybe only once before when I was really, really young. So I didn't remember a lot about it. But as we finished it, she asked me what I thought. And that was one of the things that I said. I was just like, I thought the acting was really terrible. She thought I was crazy. She thought I was absolutely crazy. And that Sarah and Becky and Ermengarde, which is really hard for me not to say, Ermengarde, and all that did a really good job. And I just thought it was really flat and very kiddie. Am I wrong?
Okay. this is one of those things where it's like, I think that the acting actually is great for what they're going for, which is really one of those backhanded compliment sort of things, but isn't intended as such. Okay. It's trying to tell. I mean, the way I took the whole thing is like, this is in a sense like almost like a fable sort of thing.
Like, this is a story she's telling her daughter later about a time in her life.
Well, I mean, not even that so much as like, it's almost like a Grimm's fairy tale where it's like, it's this journeys of a child through what you expect with the bad headmistress and the bully kids and the sort of like, it's a series of episodes that a kid can relate to and say, oh, I may not be in that situation, but I am familiar with being the outcast. I'm familiar with having the teacher who's a jackass. I'm familiar with these sorts of things and I can relate to them. And so I think actually her performance, I wouldn't sit there and say, oh my gosh, this is the greatest child actor in all time. It's something where I think what she's delivering to the screen is exactly what the story's calling for, which is sort of like a slightly more mature than her age narration sort of role, where it's like she's the guide through these stories, and so she has to be a little bit, just what she is. And also, I think it speaks to the time period. Maybe it's something that Cuarón, comes at with maybe, I don't know, even a better understanding somehow or something, but like the way kids behaved in that time period, maybe that's something they're going for, is like that, you see the way adults interact with kids back then. They're expecting more adult behavior from the kids than we might expect today, sort of thing. So I think her performance is good. I do. And I think it's something, it's what the story needs. I don't think it's going to go down in the the annals of acting history as like the greatest female lead performance in cinema history by a child. But I thought it worked. I thought it worked for this story.
So like on the spectrum of Dakota Fanning and Sofia Coppola, like where would you like land her down?
Well, which Dakota Fanning role are you talking about?
Don't answer that. I'm just being a jackass.
I know.
But so it's interesting because with Liesl Matthews, like with the two leads, I should say the two kid leads, because you have Liesl Matthews playing Sarah Crew and you have Vanessa Chester playing Becky. Liesl Matthews we also see in Air Force One, and Vanessa Chester we also see in Jurassic Park: A Lost World.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed their performances. Like, they're a little bit older there. They have a lot more to do. There's a lot more physicality to each role. And it's just amazing how much can be accomplished in just a couple of years. But I want to talk about the overall story. So obviously this story is not meant to surprise and have mystery or anything like that. Like,
the father's alive and comes back and it's a happy ending. I'm shocked.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, as you're watching it, and they said that, like, oh, he was presumed dead. You're like, oh, well, okay, well then he's gonna come back. And then when you
just like a Marvel villain, nobody, no dead.
Nobody, no dead. Even in Marvel, if there's a body, that doesn't mean anything.
Also true.
But like he shows up at the neighbor's house. You're like, oh, okay, well then like he's going to show up at the end and they're going to have a moment and everything like that. But even though we knew what was going to happen, there's still that emotional catharsis at the end when the dad gets his memory back and screams, Sarah. Darren, what did you think about that journey, the journey of the story? Like, even though it was predictable, how did you feel? Were you along for the ride? Were you frustrated? What were you feeling?
Yeah, no, it's just, as John was talking about kind of the fableness of the story, it made me think a lot of Kenneth Branagh's 2015 Cinderella, which is very much like, again, as far as like the overall plot of, have patience, be kind, like that is kind of that mantra that she does. So yeah, so Sarah has that same kind of, I mean, she's oozing lead character vibes the entire time. Like, everything is happening around her. It's her story for sure. But I don't know. I liked the quaintness of the message, even the little parts of, like, the Indian being like, hey, you should take him in, even though he's not your son. because hopefully someone is taking in your son, just like the wisdom that's coming out of these characters, because humans don't really often act like that. But no, I felt like I was in an American Girl novel. Like the little girl with the glasses looked like Molly. Like it was very much that vibe. Soft candlelight, but yeah, though the overall story.
I hate how much I relate to that comment. That's so accurate.
But I could also, like we said about this being, derived from a play, I could see this up there with like Annie. Like I could see this cranking out and, oh yeah, Annie's coming back to theater, a Little Princess, because you got the boarding, as far as the broad strokes, you got the boarding school person that, it's the similar vibe, obviously different story. But I'd say the only part that kind of was a little wand wavy was the magic of India. Like every time, like India's great and all, but it just was like, and I know cinema plays those same 3 chords from that instrument to represent India, like for all of time. But
bring out the sitar.
But it was just something about, again, I get that the fact that the characters had an experience in India, that's where they grew up, like it's important to them. But it kind of became this like magical, it was like a fantasy. It was like a fantasy India, which was a little weird.
I think the only time that I got pushed over the edge with that was when Becky and Sarah woke up and everything was decorated and they had hot
snuck
food
in and decorated all that. Yeah.
So, like at first I thought it was a dream. I thought it was all just them pretending like they were the night before. Right. Like and we were just seeing what they were, what they were dreaming. And then as the scene went on, I turned to my wife and I'm like, "Wait, this is real? Like how is this real? How did he get the chafing dishes into that room?"
He put a plank over the alley and walked across. Like I'm assuming that's how, because
so he broke into a school for girls and decorated a little.
You're not supposed to think about
It was a different time, Tristan. Okay, like the early 1900s. It just worked differently.
She sent the police into that guy's house like she owned it. She's like,
"Oh my gosh!"
I was like, "Who are you? Like these police have nothing better to do." It's like, "I'm sorry, you're guilty of being poor. We're gonna go round you up and throw you away."
And also, she calls him up. She's like, "You're like, get here as soon as possible." And then like 4 or 5 cops run into the house.
Run out, and they're like, "Let's go, men." I'm like, "Let's go, men." Like you're getting the tactical SWAT gear on to go raid the little girl's house.
But again, that gets to sort of like the children's story aspect of it,
does,
right?
It does.
The authority figures are always
They're
overbearing
really scary,
and larger than life.
We're just
if any, no, I know, but like if anything, I think that actually touches on something where it's like this is a children's movie made by somebody who isn't necessarily of the natural disposition to make a children's movie, if that makes sense. A story like this is more suited to somebody with Spielberg's sensibilities about life, like 70s and 80s Spielberg. Right. Yeah. But like,
I would love
to
see a Spielberg of this story.
Well, but it's not even specifically Spielberg. It's that type of director turns this story into a Willy Wonka, like the stuff's crazy in the right ways sort of thing. Whereas this is somebody telling it with this sort of odd adult earnestness that doesn't line up with the child story aspect of it.
Right. Like she would imagine things, we'd actually see them as the audience, but then it would snap and it's like she's back in her real world. Like we would never have that world peek into reality.
Right. You wouldn't violate that line.
Again, it's Hook. It's the imaginary dinner scene.
Speaking of Hook, Arthur Mallet is in it as Charles Randolph, also known as Toodles from Hook. When he popped up on the screen, I was like, "Oh my God, it's Toodles! He lost his marbles." But yeah, so with what we were talking about, like with the headmistress, Miss Minchin, like she's so over the top mustache twirling that it goes into that childhood fable type thing.
Like, I run a boarding school and I hate children. Like, okay, good life path.
No joy.
But no stories. I'm like, geez, this place is terrible.
It reminds me of the whale biologist in Futurama. So I hate whales. Why did I become a whale biologist? That's a long story and I don't feel like telling you.
But in addition to the Indian man decorating and bringing in hot food in their room and having robes their exact size and everything like that, having Miss Minchin at the end being a chimney sweep all of a sudden, that's when I'm like, oh,
I don't see her up on the roofs, guys. I just don't see it.
That's when I was just like, okay, all right, okay, let's
Well, you
calm
talked
down.
about from a child's point of view, and Tristan, I want to get your thoughts on what I want to call the greatest height adjustment shot of the 90s.
I know exactly what shot you're. I know exactly what you're talking
and it's
about.
an amazing shot, like, but it's
well done.
a little on top. It's a little bashing you on top of the head, but not too bad. It's when towards the end, kind of confrontation with Miss Meacham. Minchin. And she's like, I don't accept your view, and
She says, I understand it, but I don't believe it.
And didn't your father ever, call you a little princess? And it goes from shooting up at her and down at Sarah to
the camera pegs down.
It goes down till Sarah's looming
on Sarah, so that Sarah's looming, and it pegs up on Minchin.
Yeah, and where she looks tiny.
Minchin herself is going down, like is kind of leaning down herself.
And you notice it, like it's very, very. I mean, I'm not believing that Sarah's, James Giant Peach growing and looking down on her. It's obviously symbolic of the power dynamic in that moment. But what did you think about that, Tristan?
I thought it was really fascinating. I thought there was more than a few times like that where I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. Like it's cinematic storytelling. It's visual storytelling. Whether it worked for you or not, whether you thought it was too on the nose or not, is immaterial. They are conveying the message through the medium, through the physicality of where the camera is placed, and that I really appreciate. And there was one other shot that I really enjoyed. There's a reason why this was nominated. And there was one other shot where Sarah is trying to calm down the little girl who's having a tantrum because her mother has died. And there's that giant clock in the background. And she's talking about how her mother is an angel. And they move their hands back and forth, but like together, they are moving their hands. And it's a tight on both of their hands waving through the air, but in front of the clock. And it's so symbolic about, the time that we have left on this earth and how, like time flies when you're a child. And there's so many things that you can read into it. And it's a beautiful shot, but it also has a message to it. And I that's one thing that I really appreciate about this particular movie is that kind of messaging. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, and it was interesting. A lot of the shots in very well shot movie, I either felt like I was down at a child's level, or I was one of the girls up on the banister looking down at the lower story and what was going on over there. There was a lot of like looking through keyholes and, just where the camera was. It was just very, very intentional, very well done.
Once we get to Children of Men in this House of Cuarón, we will talk a lot about perspective, and this is something that this director is very adept at doing. And I kind of joked about Sofia Coppola earlier, but Sofia Coppola as a director, she makes you feel what the protagonist is feeling. If the protagonist is happy, you feel happy. If the protagonist is bored, you're going to be bored. Cuarón, he allows you to see through the eyes of the protagonist, not necessarily always feel it, but you are going to get their perspective. And that's one of the reasons why he is one of my favorites of all time. So, John, let's go ahead and go into how many lit candles are you giving this film?
I go back and forth, and I've been thinking about it, and I'm just going to say it has the trajectory to increase if I decide to watch it again, but I'm pegging this one at a solid 3, which is it didn't set me on fire. I recognize everything put together, and it's a type of movie where I think if you watch it with the right eye, you say, oh, I would be interested to see what came next for the director. And, oh, he worked with the director of photography again. Oh, what did that look like? Because I think these two could have a very good collaboration. That sort of reaction to it. So it's a 3. I'm not lit on fire. I'm not running out saying, oh, guys, we got to watch this. But it's good. I liked it.
Darren,
That's where I land. And we didn't give enough love to Patrick Doyle for his score because I thought the score was.
You're right. Like this,
fantastic.
Patrick Doyle is fantastic, and I keep talking about the future because I love Cuarón's filmography so much. But I'm going to give Patrick Doyle a lot of love next week. But he's one of those people that I will just tune him up on Spotify and just let it fly. Just whatever he's done, I just let it fly in the background. And we also didn't talk about Liam Cunningham. A very young Liam Cunningham. How many people know him from the Game of Thrones fame as Captain Crew. But Darren, like Miss mentioned, you do not give half stars. You do not give half measures. So
she doesn't give any stars. What are you talking about?
What are you giving this motion picture?
I agree with John. It's, I think, a solid 3. It's been decades since I've watched it. I probably will watch it again with my kids eventually when I think they're ready. But for all in all, it's interesting. I approached it with a little trepidation because the only part that I kind of remembered was the fact that this was a movie I remember seeing that made me feel. And it's like, I often joke, like, very rarely do I say, you know what, I want to pop in Schindler's List. Like, Schindler's List is a great movie, but it is going to make you feel. And so I was approaching this like, okay, I need to watch this again, and I'm going to kind of keep it at arm's length and like let it in because I know it's going to be emotional. And especially this being the first time watching it as a father and having my own little princess. See what I did there? But yeah, I definitely give it a solid 3. And we will watch his career with great interest.
Who am I to go against?
You go against us all the time, Tristan.
Wendell and Wild. It's just last week.
Let's pull up the list here.
Come on. It was a half-star difference in Wendell and Wild. No, this is a 3 stars.
No, you love Wendell and Wild, and we don't. That's obviously the difference we noticed with that 0.5%.
Also true.
The 3 stars is exactly what came to mind for me as well. If it wasn't for Lubeski, this would not be a 3-star film for me. I think it would be a 2.5 max if it wasn't for Lubeski. I think that, and that's not necessarily a knock. Like saying 2.5 is just kind of like middle of the road. It's fine, whatever. It exists. But when you get the art direction, which is separate from Lubeski, of course, but when you get the art direction and you get the cinematography mixed together, mixed with this, it truly becomes a feast. And this is. I'm not like you said, John. I'm not on fire about it, but this is a well-made picture. And so for that, it gets a solid 3 across the board. So next week, we're actually going to deliver what we promised last week with Great Expectations, which came out in 1998. So please tune in next week as we continue our House of Cuarón.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.